my friends. I'm Julie DeLucca-Collins with the Casa de Confidence Productions and the Confident You radio show. I am so grateful to have had this opportunity to meet so many wonderful world-renowned class speakers that have been here sharing with us in the Purposeful You Summit. I've learned so much. I have been inspired. I have cried a little bit because their stories have been moving. Their stories of finding their purpose, overcoming challenges and grief, and really being able to then thrive and help others are going to be stories that I carry for a long time. I hope that by bringing you this content, you too will be inspired, will be motivated, and most of all, you will begin to share your personal journey with others. Our personal journey is very unique. We sometimes feel that we need to compare to our neighbors, to our friends, but we forget the greatness that is in us. I want to remind you that you have a unique purpose, a unique light inside of you. And for this reason, I invite you to tune in. I invite you to tune in to this last panel of the Purposeful You Summit. I have one life to live, and so do you. One life to live is all about the personal steps that we have taken, the personal journeys that we've gone through. Living life to the fullest means embracing it all, the good, the bad, and the in-between. When we remember that we have one life to live, then we can make an impact and we can live in the way that we are meant to. We can live our dreams. I am touched. Make sure you subscribe. I want to keep in touch with you. I want to make sure that you receive everything that is coming, that you deserve, that you've been searching for. This life is not something that is meant to be lived alone. We can live this life together. This one life to live today starts today for you. Bringing it home for the Purposeful You Summit, we have Cynthia France, Denise Bard, Libby Kopak, Ronnie Bartles, Kelly Snyder, Kathy Mag, Simon Latter, and Mikkel McCracken. These friends, these speakers are bringing to you their joyous journey and the lessons on how they are living that one life, that one precious life that we all have. Thank you for being here. Subscribe, put your comments, tell us what you think. And by the way, Go Confidently Coaching is where you're going to find more information on how to connect, in addition to the information that will be in the comments here on YouTube. You can also get an array of gifts that these panelists are giving us, so connect with us in the comments. Thank you so much, and hit the subscribe button. I'll see you after the show.
Hi, I'm Cindy Krantz, President and owner of Mezzo Creative LLC, a boutique social and digital media agency. We specialize in strategy, implementation, and delivering results for clients big and small in all different industries. We work on everything from paid and organic social media content creation, account management, blogging, to e-newsletters. We're proud to be classified as a woman-owned small business in Ohio. And I am also the mother of 2 boys and wife to an amazing husband. I'm here to talk to you about something dear to my heart today that should be important to your heart. And yet it's something people often neglect, and that is joy. Because joy can drive purpose in life. Is your life a joyful one? Joy. What a small word. 3 letters. What a great impact it can have if you put it front and center. What a huge difference it can make if you move it from the back seat to the driver's seat. It can let you build and rebuild time and again. Again, it provides purpose. I'm not talking about a fleeting sensation. I'm talking about something that sustains you in the dark times. The thing that guides you in the challenges and shows you where to go. The satisfaction of a life well led. Joyfulness can be yours. I had to choose it for myself, and you can choose it too. Let's talk about some of the advantages of joy. According to a study published titled The Objective Benefits of Subjective Well-Being, joy can improve your relationships because people like being around happy people. Happier people give more to others. It can enhance your productivity. Who wouldn't want to be more productive? But you produce more when you're in a positive mood. It can promote better health behaviors. Happier people engage in more exercise. I know I exercise more when I'm in a better mood. It can lead to better immune functioning. Happier people are more resistant to colds and even experience faster wound healing. And it predicts greater longevity. That's right. Happier people live longer. And wouldn't you want to live longer if you had a joyful life? So how did I end up here at the idea of joy being purposeful? Well, it was a windy road. Let me tell you that. I started my career at the bottom rung in the production department of a major New York ad agency. My then long-distance boyfriend of 5 years called me and asked me to move to the small town of Huntington, West Virginia, and said, "If you move, I'll marry you." So I packed up my stuff, I moved, and I cried for a year. Then I found purpose in my master's program, and I worked for the international department on campus. Now, I had double majored in communication studies and French in college, and the international department became a second home to me. I found joy there. I built a new community. When it was clear we were staying for a while longer in West Virginia, I decided the best thing to do was to make a career switch into healthcare, which is still a dominant force in the area. Life was good. I was content with my work, happy with my marriage, and I'd built a great circle of friends. I had built on joy. And then I got a call. Daddy is missing. My dad had taken a small airplane and he'd been missing for 36 hours. They found the plane, unfortunately, and he was in it, and it had crashed on takeoff. I was 2 months away from having my first child, and I thought I would never recover. You see, my dad was larger than life. He was a mentor, a friend, and a man of mountain faith. At his funeral, where hundreds of people showed up, my sister read a letter from him that said, "Don't let circumstances steal your joy." Okay, Dad. So I swore I wouldn't. I had a bracelet cast into silver with his handwriting that says joy to remind me of my new purpose. 2 years later, I had my second son, 37 weeks, healthy little baby. And then 3 weeks later, I called 911 and I knew things would be different for a while because he wasn't breathing. He had RSV, which is just a cold to many of us, but can be life-threatening for an infant. He would spend a week in the pediatric ICU fighting for his little life, and I would go into the depths of despair, fearing that I would lose him. The doctors told me if he made it out, he would have a series of delays as a result, but I was not prepared for what those delays would be. He needed occupational, developmental, physical, and speech therapies for the next 2.5 years, just as we were picking up to move to Cleveland for my husband's job. So I did what I always do, and I phoned a friend. Her response? She brought me back to my advertising roots. Cindy, what's the producer's adage? Well, not sure where she was going with this, but I said, pick two. You can have it done fast, cheap, or done well. She said to me, pick two, Cindy. You can have your family, your health, or your career. Pick two. And I thought, well, I'm nothing without my health. My family is everything. And then I realized, maybe if I nail the first two, I can have the third. So with the course of support in the community I've built, I launched Mezzo Creative as a way to give myself the flexibility to work while managing the therapies my son needed. Fast forward 3 years, we're both winners. He's bursting into kindergarten, and I've built a team that I love working with and a roster of clients I really enjoy serving. There was joy again. It gave me purpose. But then the work got exciting. See, I'm a producer project manager by trade, and I was presented with the opportunity to work with some major agencies on some massive brands. I got to run with the big dogs again. 10 years before I'd moved from New York City, I thought I'd given that up. I'd left it for love. But here I was back in the game like I'd never left. So I ran with it. And it ran me ragged. I couldn't stop. And I didn't know how. My stress level was overwhelming. And the family was fraying. Till one day, that same little buddy sat me down on the steps of his pre-K and said, Mommy working too hard. And it frustrates me in my heart. Okay. This little boy who needed a ton of speech therapy had said what no one else could. Out of the mouths of babes. So I phoned a friend again. And she asked, Cindy, why do you need the guts and glory? And I said, it comes back to Dad. He was a big CEO. He worked all the time. And she turned it on me in an instant and said, no, your father was not a workaholic. He loved his job. He loved his people. He loved his clients. He wasn't about the work. He was about the joy. Working harder does not connect you to him. Finding joy does. And then I realized how distorted my outlook had been. So I put on the bracelet and I haven't taken it off. And I spelled out those 3 letters. And I vowed to make joy the purpose and the reason behind what I do. I invest in my team at Mezzo because it's fulfilling to provide for others. I'm proud of the work we do for our clients that helps them succeed in their businesses. It brings me joy. I mentor the next generation to give them the opportunity to choose their path, especially young women. And I'm here today to tell you it's not about the work. It's about the joy. I'm here to tell you today that you can build from loss. You can rebuild from tragedy. You can rebuild from sorrow through joy. Because I have, time and again. It is the constant that has pulled me through. Where do you find your joy? I'm Cindy Krantz. You can find me at mezzocreative.com and at Mezzo Creative on Instagram. Thanks for listening today.
30-second moments. It takes 30 seconds for us to feel something so deep that it transcends the time it took for someone to say something to us that we needed to hear. And it only takes 30 seconds for us to shift our focus to hear and feel those moments. My mom was 16 when she had me and addicted to drugs. I grew up in a very abusive environment. My earliest memories are when my mom would pick me up from daycare. I was about 4 years old, and she would pick me up with men I had never seen before. Her addiction had become so bad that she used me in order to get the highs that she wanted. I would hear all the time how I ruined her life, how the only reason why I was here is because she was raped. Now, I didn't understand that when I was younger, but I obviously grew up to know. She would even tell me that the things that were happening to me were my fault too. And I believed her. So I never told anyone about the abuse that was happening. She would tell me how she hated me. I didn't matter, that no one would ever want a kid like me, and that no one wants to waste their time with me, so they're going to leave me anyway. And I believed her. Statistically, they say I should be addicted to drugs. Statistically, I should be an alcoholic. And statistically, I should be dead. When I was 14, I tried to take my life. One morning before school, I went into our medicine cabinet and I grabbed out all of her bottles of pills. I took a handful, I crushed them into water, and I began to drink. But I stopped after that first sip. And no, it wasn't because I didn't want to die, and it wasn't because I wanted to live. I knew that if I did this, she is going to play the victim. And that just angered me so much. I was so angry. So instead, I went to the bus stop. I told a good friend of mine who I knew was going to tell school. And of course, she told school. And then they're calling my mom in. And she did exactly what I expected her to do, was play the victim. Now they call the police in. And when they get there, I'm like, I'm not going home. You can take me anywhere you want, but I will not go home. So they take me to this shelter for runaway, abused, and homeless youth, which was back in my hometown. And I had stayed there about a month. And for 1 month, I felt the safest I had ever felt in my life. For 1 month, I wasn't afraid to go to sleep at night. I wasn't afraid to wake up in the morning. I was cared about without any expectation from me. They matched me with this case manager who was a beautiful woman, not too much older than me, but God, did she love me. And how did she show me? She would grab me into these bear hugs that when she squeezed, it was as if all of my fears, all of my sadness just fell apart. I was just right here. It would be her that would teach me how to shift my focus. And that's how I found my 30 seconds. So after therapy every day, she would say, Denise, look around you. There's so many people who care about you. And I would get so frustrated because I'm thinking, I don't have time to look around. I have this abuse in front of me. I'm just trying to survive. But she didn't know about that abuse because, again, I felt like, I was told it was my fault, and I felt like that. But every time she would tell me the same thing: look around you. There's so many people who care. And one day it just clicked. She wasn't asking me to change my perspective of what was in front of me. She was asking me to shift my focus and find that positive and find the positive moments around me. And it's when I did, just everything changed. It was my 8th grade math teacher that year that gave me those 30 seconds. She was my favorite teacher, and not because of the subject. I totally suck at math, but she was my favorite teacher. One day, someone came into school to see her. Now, I'm at my locker, which is just across the hall from her class. I'm kneeling down, I'm grabbing out books, and I hear her call me. So immediately I go over there. I had long, curly hair, and she takes my hair away from my shoulders, pushes it back, and she puts my hand there. And to this person, she said, "This is my Denise." 30 seconds. That's it. It just took 30 seconds. And God, did I finally feel it. I felt wanted. I felt like somebody wanted me. And all it took was for her to say those words, which were less than 30 seconds. And they didn't mean anything to her. It was like so simple. Yet for me, man, I live in that moment when I think about it. It's one of those that just hits you in the soul. So, 6 months later, I am now in high school, so I no longer have that teacher around. So, I'm in high school, and I come back from Christmas break, and if you've lived an abusive life in a home where there's, chaos, you know that anytime there's a holiday or anytime there's summer, we don't have that place to escape. We're right there all the time. So I come back from Christmas break and I'm feeling completely defeated. Like, I didn't care anymore if she was going to play victim. I didn't care how much sympathy she got. It doesn't matter. But I decided that I'm going to go to my last basketball practice before I did what I was going to do. And what you don't see on the other side is I'm 5 feet tall. There's nothing about me that screams basketball at all. But the coach was my soccer coach, and she like forced me into playing basketball. So I'm glad that she did, though. So I'm walking into practice that day. She comes flying up beside me. And then she grabs me into this headlock and she said, I'm going to take you under my wings. That's it. That 30 seconds it took her to say those words. And in here, every time I say it, I mattered. And I went from the kid that was being told constantly that I did not matter to 30 seconds. And I am like feeling this in my chest. I mattered to her. Same years. Now I'm in school. I have a gym teacher who I really got close with. So much so that she could tell, like if she saw me in school or in the hallways or I was in class, she could tell when I wasn't having a good day. Something was off. So she would say, come see me after school. Come on, let's talk. So after school, I'd go and we'd go sit in her car. And this was way back before all the craziness of today. And as we would sit there, the first thing she would do is she would tap me on the knee. And as she's tapping me on the knee, she was saying, so tell me about your day. How you doing? Come on, talk to me. In 30 seconds, I went from the kid who was told that I wasn't worthy, people were going to leave me, I was too much for them, to having someone invested in wanting to know how I am. I mean, that feeling in there, it just, man, it's so far in there. And I lived those moments a lot. So anytime my mom would tell me that she hated me, well, I'm going back to that moment my case manager would hug me and I'm feeling loved. I don't care. I'm feeling loved. She would tell me that no one would ever want me. Well, I'm going back to the moment my teacher introduced me to someone as hers. I'm living that moment. I am wanted. When I'm told I don't matter, I'm going back to the coach. In that moment, I do matter. And then again, when she would tell me that, people are going to leave me, they don't want to be around me. And I'm going back to every moment that my teacher sat in that car talking to me. And it's just the same feeling I got every single time. Skip forward to 2 years ago. My daughter's turning 18 and she wants to spend the day in New York. And so prior to this, when she was growing up, anytime she asked me about my childhood, I would just say, it wasn't a happy one. I didn't want to tell her, what was going on. I would just say, I wasn't happy as a kid. But as she got older, she became more and more inquisitive. So I would tell her, you know what? When you turn 18, you can ask me. So here we are driving to New York, her 18th birthday. She started to ask me. So I share a little bit, not a lot. I wanted to share what I was comfortable with. But as I'm sharing, I'm talking about my case manager and how I felt loved, my teacher, how I felt wanted, my coach, how I felt like I mattered, and my other teacher, how I meant to her, I was worthy of her time. And then I say, I wish I was adopted so I could have had a mom so that I could be a better mom to you. And without skipping a beat, she lays her hand on my arm. I'm driving, remember? And she said, Mom, I am so happy that they raised you that way, because I love the way that you raised me. Almost crashed my car. But see, that 30 seconds, it transcended even the time that it helped me. That 30 seconds that I felt is now in her hands and she feels it. 30 seconds transcended every moment it took for these women to say the things that they did. And now she's feeling it. And I know that her children will feel it. Every day we're presented with moments of opportunity. Either somebody is saying something to us that we can feel that again, or we're saying something to someone else who just needs to hear what we have to say. Find your 30 seconds, shift your focus, and find that 30 seconds and live in that moment.
Hi, I'm Libby Kopek. Thanks for joining me today. I am a wife, a mom of two. I used to be a teacher and a school counselor, and I left that job right before the pandemic. And now I am a spiritual mentor and I help people find the light within themselves. So today, I want to discuss the importance of being authentically you. Sometimes in life, we get way too busy and we really forget to focus on ourselves. This is a huge mistake. And I want to encourage you to slow down, to smell the roses, to enjoy the little moments that life offers you every day. It's so important not to get caught up in the hustle bustle of the season or whatever we're doing, and to really take the time each day to reflect on how did our day go? How was it? Did I accomplish the things I wanted to accomplish? Did I get my checklist done? But most of all, did I fill my soul up today? Because if you're not filling your soul up every day, you're really missing out on the true meaning of life. And the whole point of living is to be you, authentically you. But society sometimes doesn't really let us do that, does it? Sometimes we have to be really careful what sides we show certain people. I know I've been judged harshly at times for many different things. So I learned to play the game really, at a young age, how to play the game of life and only show certain people certain parts of myself. Then when they gained my trust, then I was like, okay, now I can show them a little bit more. And as the time went on, I was like, okay, now I can show them a little bit more, even a little bit more. And that's really not being authentically you. So I'm really glad that I had the chance after I left my education job to reflect and to really figure out who is Libby. I took a lot of time to myself away from my husband and kids, asking, hey, I just need an hour here or I need an hour there to read a self-help book, to journal, to reflect on things that had happened in my childhood, to get some healing from different people, even just a massage for myself. Time for you has to be of utmost importance. If you're truly going to be authentically you, you have to be comfortable sitting alone with yourself. And how many of you really do that? Right? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to just tweak some things in your life. Maybe you need to slow down a little bit or ask someone to take on a task that you've been taking. There's many different things that you can do. And this is what I do. I help people with that whole process. I give you clarity and answers and different things that might be searching for. So my journey started when I was really young. I was very intuitive at a young age, and I communicated with my angels and spirit guides on a day-to-day basis. However, as I got older, that was not acceptable, right? That was weird. That was like a little freaky for some people. So I learned to shut that down. And I became this totally different person, the person that people wanted to see. But inside, my soul was like screaming because I wasn't really being me. But I just kept pursuing what, I thought other people wanted me to pursue. And as that happened, ironically, I kept having issues in my life that would pop up. There'd be a roadblock. And society teaches us to just bulldoze through that roadblock and keep pushing, you can do it, you can overcome it. But what I've learned is that when you have roadblocks, that's actually a sign that you shouldn't be on that road at all. That's a sign that you need to shift, that you need to jump off that path and move just a little bit in either direction onto a new path. Not that you have to turn completely the other way, but just make a little shift in your life. So if you're finding that in everything you do, or maybe just in one area of your life, that you're running into these roadblocks, I want you to pause and think about what your soul is trying to communicate to you, because those roadblocks are there and they're messages for us. So when I went through my journey then, and I started to really think about these roadblocks that I had like major epiphanies of, how, I had all the warning signs and I didn't listen. And because I didn't listen, some of those warning signs, they got louder and louder and louder. And then I ended up with certain traumas that happened to me because I didn't listen. So I hope that that will help some of you today to maybe think of things a little different in your life. Think of things, just that things aren't happening to you necessarily, they're happening for you. So when you get those roadblocks, they're actually happening for you, that your soul is trying to say, hey, like this isn't right. This doesn't feel good. And I also encourage you to start trusting your gut more. Trust your own intuition. It will never, ever lead you down the wrong path. But you have to trust it, even if it sounds way crazy. Because quitting my job in education to everybody but me was way crazy, because I gave up a good salary, great insurance, wonderful retirement, and everybody's like, Libby, what are you doing? And I got judged so badly for that. But now I'm happier and my life is easy. And I didn't know that life could be this easy. Because I'm on my right path and I have become authentically Libby, and I am allowing my light to shine bright for everyone to see, good things just naturally happen for me. I can't even explain it. It's like I wake up, I make sure I'm being authentic, and I just have blessed things happening to me every day, all day long. So I highly encourage you guys to just, again, check out your own life, do a little journaling, do some reflecting and figure that out. It's been great talking to you today. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram just at Libby Kopek. I make it really simple for people because sometimes it gets too complicated. My website is simple also, www.findyourlightwithlibby.com. And I have a blog on there. I'll be adding some more things as well. I wrote a children's book called The Many Faces of Grief that is also sold on my website, or you can check it out on Amazon. And I also offer tarot card readings. So I would be happy to do a 30 or 60-minute tarot card reading for you on Zoom. Well, it was great chatting with you, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the year.
Hey, I'm Ronnie, and that's spelled with two I's because it looked pretty silly with only one. As you could tell, I'm in marketing. But today I wanted to talk because I'm a product of hustle culture. And I'd like to say that I was recovering, but I'm a work in progress like anybody else because hustle culture is glamorized for entrepreneurs. See, I'm a business strategist and marketing expert, and I've spent my entire career thinking that the harder I work, the more success and money I have. But if I'm completely honest, it hasn't worked out all that well for me. I grew up in a decade where the motto was work hard, play hard. But as it turns out, what that really means is you work hard, then you work harder. You remember those motivational posters of the 80s and 90s of photos of animals and scenic places that say things like, dreams don't work unless you do? Yeah, that's what I grew up with. But all that's done for me is made me a workaholic that self sabotages because of perfectionism. So after college, I had started down the traditional corporate career path where you get a job with benefits and 2 weeks vacation. Then in 2008, I veered off that path because the economy had crashed and I became an entrepreneur and went to work for myself. Everyone said, work for yourself. You'll love it. You make your own hours. You can work anywhere. You can take as much vacation as you want. Well, if you're an entrepreneur, that's not quite how that works. There's a lot of pressure as an entrepreneur because everything falls on your shoulders. And if you screw it up, well, that's kind of where hustle culture comes in and tells us failure is not an option. And this is where every business coach, expert, and guru under the sun comes in and tells you what you should be doing. And we throw our money at them because their marketing is really great. You know what I'm talking about. That 4 mile sales page where they say things like, don't make the same mistakes I did, or follow my 6-step formula for a 6-figure launch. Then there's my personal favorite. If you can do it, if I can do it, you can do it too. So one will tell you that you need a high-end product, another one will tell you that you need a low-end product. And before you know it, you have a strategy for your strategy for your strategy. And it's a perpetual state of chasing your tail because there's so many voices that tell you what you should be doing. And then you get decision fatigue because there are so many options. It's kind of like when I go to the Cheesecake Factory and I have that 20-page menu and I never make it past the first page because there's just too many options and I end up ordering the fried mac and cheese. It's just paralyzing. So then you end up kind of doing nothing at all. And then there are a million different options. You should be doing something. Then there's the pressure that you need to be working so hard because so many people are depending on you. So then you just end up hustle, hustle, hustle. Do you kind of see what's happening here? Do you feel it, that tightness in your chest of the anxiety of it all? But you know what? This is where I come in and say, business isn't hard. We make it hard. So let me tell you a little bit about what happened to me. In 2016, I was working out of town at a client's office, and I went into the office that morning, one Friday morning, and I didn't feel very good. And I kind of thought maybe I had food poisoning. So by the afternoon, I didn't feel any better, and I went to my boss there, and I said, I'm not going to make it back to Charleston tonight. I'm going to go rent a hotel room, and I'm going to hopefully then like sleep this off and head back home tomorrow morning. He was like, okay, you really don't feel good. So that's what I did. I went, I took a nap, and I woke up and I didn't feel any better at all. And I knew something was wrong. So I drove myself to an urgent care, and the doctor there said, I think you have food poisoning, but I wouldn't rule out appendicitis. And I suggest you go to the emergency room. And as she said it, my pain like shot through the roof. And I said, I need you to call an ambulance right now. So I ended up in the hospital and I was there. My appendix did rupture and I was there for 14 days. And then I was 10 days after that recovering. So it was a solid month dealing with this. And what I can say is throughout that month, I had to cancel everything. I canceled every meeting. I didn't even feel good enough to do anything that was on my to-do list. I canceled everything. And I made just as much money that month as I did any other month that I was busy and working my butt off. So all of that is to say that business isn't hard. We make it hard because there are a few things in business that are just common truths. Expenses, revenue needs to be higher than expenses, and that coffee is a necessary business expense. But we make it hard. We make it hard because we overthink it, and then we create busy work for ourselves. But it doesn't have to be that way. This is why my clients call me the CEO of simplicity, because I believe that it can be simple. See, I work with a company that I've worked with for 17 years, and they're close to a $3 million company. So it's a tiny company. It's a decent sized organization. And they run their whole thing on 5 spreadsheets. The whole company on 5 spreadsheets. And this is why I say we can be CEOs of simplicity. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You have to get really messy to get simple. You have to put everything on the table and be brutally honest about what stays and what goes, and who stays and who goes. You have to be absolutely clear on what you do and what you stand for. And you need to ask yourself, what are the values that I have? Then you need to be clear on who you do that for. And that's the really hard part, because we want to work for everybody. We want to help everybody. That's part of why we went into business. We want to help everybody. But then after that, once you know like exactly what you do and who you do it for, then it's just finding the right strategies and tactics to meet that vision and to move it forward. But this is where it starts to get off the rails a little bit, and all of those gurus come back in with all the shoulds you should be doing, because all the voices start and then it gets overwhelming. And overwhelm is your enemy. So I like to start with getting the facts. What do we actually know to be true? And I'll use myself as an example on this. I look at my analytics. I come from a marketing research background, so analytics are a big deal for me. But we don't have to make them scary or hard. Like, I know that it can get a little confusing because there's so many numbers, but you can kind of look at your analytics. And I know I look at mine and go, social media doesn't really work that well for me. But every time I do a podcast interview or a speaking engagement, I get email signups and I get people scheduling free strategy calls. And that's a fact I know. I know that because of my analytics. So why should I spend 10 hours a week perfecting reels or writing posts when I could be using that time to be pitching podcasts for things that I actually know are going to do something for me? And those are facts that I know. So then I ask myself, does that strategy feel good? And if it feels right for me, which it does, then now you're moving in the right direction. But then after that, you have to stick with it. And sometimes that feels boring and that it's not enough. Hello, hustle culture, my old friend. But it is. You have to stick with what works for you and just make it simple. It really is just that simple. And I'm not going to be delusional here. I get it. I've been doing this for almost 15 years. And I know that simple can be hard because we're programmed to work hard, play hard, like we talked about before. Hence why I'm not really a recovering workaholic. It's hard to escape all the voices. And if you remember earlier, I said you need to be very diligent on who stays and who goes. That also includes getting rid of all of those voices. So every now and again, I even go through my social media and I unfollow people because I don't need all of those voices in my head. So I have to decide who stays and who goes. You just have to reduce the noise. You've probably seen that meme where it says, my brain is like an internet browser. 19 tabs are open, 3 of them are frozen, and I have no idea where the music's coming from. Well, that's funny because it's true. And all of that's to say, this is your one life, your one job. And do you really want to spend it hustling all the time and losing that time that you could be doing things that you really love? So maybe close a few of those tabs and really lean into being a CEO of simplicity. So what do you have to lose?
What if everything you've been through in your life has a purpose? I'm Kelly Snyder, and my mission is to heal the world one story at a time. I'm a best-selling author, podcaster, and publisher. I like to call myself a story alchemist, and my more than 25 years in the event industry has made me an expert in helping my clients discover, define, and transform their stories to impact the world in a positive way. Are you ready to do the same? Because that's really what this summit is all about. Throughout this summit, we've had the opportunity to dive into the panels and discussions on finding our purpose, not letting our past define us, finding healing, empowering others, rebuilding our lives, finding hope in hardship, finding the silver lining, helping others, and now how we have one life to live today. So what does every panel and every speaker and expert have in common? The stories that created the foundation of how they have done all of these things and why they are here. So what if I told you that you can do the same thing? What if I told you that you have hundreds, maybe even thousands of stories that can help you accomplish all of these things? Stories that point the way to your purpose, to no longer letting the past define you, to finding hope, healing, and that silver lining in the midst of those experiences. And the stories that allow you to help and empower others by inspiring them at what could be the most difficult or challenging time in their own life. What if I told you that you definitely have just one story that can do all of this? Would you believe me? So again, I'm Kelly Snyder, and my mission, my purpose, is to heal the world one story at a time. So how do I do this? Well, first, it's important that each of us understand that our stories matter. Not just my stories, or the stories of all the other panelists, or the stories of whatever influencer, celebrity, or high achiever you might admire or follow. Your stories matter too. You might be saying to yourself, oh, please, not another person telling me that story is the key to everything. I get it. Story, or rather telling our stories, has been something of a trend in the recent days. We see and hear about it in the news, in advertising, in marketing, in the business world, even across every social media platform. And that's because the truth is it works. Because we connect with stories in a way that we don't connect with facts or statistics. Stories include and engage our emotions. So then we actually feel it ourselves. And when we feel it, we are more likely to engage with whatever or whoever is telling that story. For example, if we see a product making someone else feel or look more successful, smarter, stronger, whatever it is that we might want in our own lives, we are more likely to purchase that product. Even before there was written language, early societies told stories using images, things like cave drawings. They also used storytelling to pass on knowledge to younger generations. And as civilizations grew, stories helped each successive generation build upon experience and knowledge so that we didn't have to learn that same information over and over again. So yes, stories are important in many ways, but our stories, your stories, they also matter for a completely different reason. You see, by understanding our stories, all of our stories, whether they be about the blessings or burdens, the triumphs or the traumas, the achievement or the struggle, in these stories, we find our strength. We find what we are truly made of and all that we can bring to this world. We even find our purpose. Our stories are the key to connecting our past, present, and future. And through them, we learn that everything we experience teaches us something that we can embrace, integrate into our lives, and then pass on to others. We can make a difference with our stories in our own lives, in the lives of those we care about, and even, if we choose to do so, in this greater world in which we live. And isn't that purposeful? Our stories have impact. They can inspire others. They can and do create connection that matters. They attract like-minded people into our worlds and our businesses. And they can become the roadmap that someone else might need so that they know it's possible to get through their own difficult times. However, to accomplish all of these things with our stories, we actually have to do the work to heal them first. You see, we live in a hurting world. It's obvious, right? And hurt people, well, they hurt other people. Many of our stories are rooted in the hurt caused by others. Maybe there was addiction in your home or abuse, any kind of abuse. PTSD, your own or a family member's, accidents, death, job loss, tragedies of all kinds that result in grief, anger, mistreatment of others, resentment. That list can go on and on. But what is at the root of all of these things is hurt. The important thing for us to do is to interrupt that cycle of hurt. It needs to stop with us so we don't pass it on. When we make the decision to work on whatever it is that we tell ourselves about our own experiences, this begins that healing process. For a moment, consider the word orphan. What comes to mind when you see or hear that word? Perhaps images of Oliver Twist saying, "Please, sir, may I have some more?" Or Annie and her hard knock life. A sad and difficult existence for sure. How about when you learn about their rags to riches endings? When Oliver finds his family and an inheritance and Annie is adopted by Daddy Warbucks, does your image of the word orphan still fit as a description for either of them? Or does it feel wrong, perhaps uncomfortable and too sad, the word orphan, for those fairy tale endings? What if I told you that Edgar Allan Poe, Eleanor Roosevelt, Babe Ruth, Marilyn Monroe, John Lennon, Steve Jobs, and even Jamie Foxx were all orphans? Would your feelings about any of them change? Well, I'm also an orphan. You see, when I was 3 years old, my parents fell asleep while they were smoking. A cigarette fell between the cushions of the couch in their bedroom, and it started a very smoky fire. Thankfully, my sister and I were rescued by a good Samaritan and the fire department, but sadly, my parents didn't make it. So, back to that label, orphan. Does that change how you feel about me now that you know this about me? Does it perhaps bring up pity or other similar emotions? That possibility that you might feel pity is why for most of my life, I was hesitant to tell people my whole story. I didn't want to be pitied, and I definitely didn't want to be seen as a victim. For years, I let people put me in the role of victim because of that word, and I took on that identity, orphan. It led to all kinds of hurt and issues around abandonment, rejection, self-esteem, value, and worth. And because people told me that being an orphan was something to be pitied, it was something that I started to be ashamed of, something that I felt made me less than. And I had to do a lot of work on healing myself, on healing all the meaning I put into that early life experience and all the things that resulted from it, because these big traumas have additional things that happen in our lives. But I had to do all that work in order to start to see myself differently. I'm still doing the work, but all of that work and healing is so incredibly worth it. You see, when we heal our stories and everything that we tell ourselves about them, that healing transforms the stories and us. This is alchemy in action, and why I call myself a story alchemist. It is as simple and as complicated as changing one little word. This is best illustrated in a quote from Tony Robbins, where he asks, "What if life were happening for us rather than to us?" Did you catch the words there? Because when we can take our worst experience and find something that makes it great, that makes it worthwhile, then we can find grace and gratitude. And life is always a gift. When I stopped thinking about the fire and my parents' death as something that happened to me and started asking how it might have happened for me, it changed my life. There's those words again, change to for. First, I realized that most of the people and experiences I had in my life were a direct result of having new parents, living in a different place, having different experiences. I had friends I wouldn't have met otherwise. I went to schools I wouldn't have gone to otherwise. Those are really the most obvious ones. But ultimately, I discovered my own strength, my resilience. I discovered that I am a survivor and a victor rather than a victim. Most importantly, I stopped feeling any shame around my story and I started talking about it, which is when I discovered the impact that my story had on others. And you can do the same, no matter what your story is. When you find yourself saying that something happened to you, take a moment and ask instead, how did this happen for me? That is where you'll find your strength. It can point to the root of your purpose, and it is what can and will inspire somebody else. This panel's topic is One Life to Live Today, which just drives home the point that your story is important and it matters. Not tomorrow when you think you've got it all figured out, or when you have more time because your kids are grown, or maybe you're retired, or you have more money and you can take that trip, or whatever other qualifier you put on doing the things that you want to do for yourself. There is no time like the present to make time for you, to discover your purpose, to pursue your passion and your joy, to discover and heal and transform your story so that you can make a difference for someone else. Don't wait, because nobody is promised tomorrow.
Hello, hello. My name is Katie Mag, and I am a humor ambassador. And I use humor to help people with self resilience, for pain management, stress management. Who doesn't have that as caregivers of most of us who are at this point in our lives? But I'm going to have you kind of take a little journey. We're going to pretend that humor is kind of like an ink pen, like we're writing our story in life. And what does that mean? So, in your story in life, there's many twists and turns and different chapters that we go through. So we're going to use that pen to help us put our thoughts down in the paper. And sometimes resilience is challenging times in this. So what's going to happen is we're going to understand the emotional resilience first, so we can kind of understand why we're going to be using humor. Picture the ink in your pen as your resilience ink. It just flows smoothly onto the paper. Emotional resilience lets us flow through life, but with its ups and downs. It's like the ink that keeps the narrative moving, even in the face of the unexpected plot twists, as I call them, because every time, even in the best laid plans, there's a plot twist, right? And how we deal with those is how our emotional resilience is going to be determined. So we're going to also talk about how we can use humor as a resilience. In our life storybook, humor is the ink that adds color and depth into our story, correct? You can use that as doodling on the side of the page instead of all black and white, black and white. But you can also use varying inks and colors to add different emotions in the writing. Humor adds a positivity and energy to our story. So with humor, we're going to shift our perspective. Using humor is like tilting the pen to create a different artistic line, or darker, or lighter, darker, or lighter. It's a tool that can sketch a whimsical perspective, an image even on the page, or doodling a funny caricature. Alongside our notes, similar humor changes how we face challenges. It's like a tool that helps us tackle the problems of lightheartedness. Actually, research shows that 60%, if people use humor, it helps them 60% face the challenge with a lighthearted flair. And who couldn't use that? We all have, with the pandemic, stress has increased. The statistics show 74% are more stressed this year than last. And the studies show that 70 to 90% of all family doctors' offices revert back to stress. And I'll be honest, I thought they were like, that's just a whatever. But it's true. I had talked to my doctor and he's like, funny that you said that. He said, because at lunchtime I had only one patient on board of a whole rest of the afternoon. And after the news said, you need to be watching out for this, my day filled up with people with headaches and backaches and a couple other aches and pains that were not something that they had been having. So that is how they precipitated their stress. And stress, we can, when we get stressed, we either have physical symptoms, mental stress symptoms, or emotional, or we have a problem handling the stress, and that's okay. But actually, the stress and laughter can reduce stress. So we're going to imagine that the smooth ink that glides upon the paper adds the graceful touch to the writing. Laughter adds a smoothing touch to our challenges because it helps us increase our oxygen by 50%, which helps us think outside the box. So it helps us think smoother transition. It helps with the hurdles and easier to navigate with a little bit of laughter or lividity. It doesn't mean that the problem's not big or small. It just means that you've changed how you're going to perceive it, what you're going to do with it. So now I'm going to tell you a story of how resilience or humor became my resiliency during a time of burnout, just like you. I had a special needs son who had a tracheostomy tube, been many, many doctors and visits, and he was a 24-hour-a-day baby. Honest. Anyway, so one morning I got the privilege to go to work. I tell you, yes, I got the privilege to go to work because I didn't get to go to work every day. I only got to work part-time just because I needed to for my sanity and for insurance. So it was all quiet in my house. I think you could even probably hear a mouse scamper if we didn't have one, but you could see the sun starting to peek across the window. Of course, that wakes me up every time. I was getting ready for work. I worked at an information center it was called the Healthy Lifestyle Center. So I was tiptoeing around very quietly. I wanted to enjoy my hot coffee by myself. Just because it was my time for me without having to do anything for anybody else but taking care of. So I slip into my closet and just grab my shoes, kind of put them on, go to the bath, go to the usual morning routine, got to sit down at the desk, put my coffee there, enjoy my hot cup of coffee before anybody else got up and got to go to work. Loved it. Smooth sailing all the way to work. Not a problem. Great. Loved it. Got to work, was busy with patients all day. They were coming in and asking. I think it was a busy day. We were doing cholesterol checks. So, everybody wants a free cholesterol check. So we're doing that. And after about 6 hours, because it was 12-hour shifts, about 6 hours, my friend comes in and she starts laughing. And she says to me, do you get dressed much lately? I looked at her. I said, what do you mean? She's like, have you looked down at your feet today? I said, no, why? She's like, well, she says, you have 2 different shoes on. And lo and behold, I'm telling you, I sometimes buy shoes because it was dress shoes. One was black and one was a brown. If you didn't really look at it, you wouldn't even notice, but she noticed. Then I was thinking to myself, who else would have noticed? I just started laughing and laughing. And I said, you know what? It could have been worse. It could have been to my 2 left feet, couldn't it? We could have danced through this. So I use laughter to kind of work with my resilience. Could I change the situation? Nope. I was halfway in through my shift. It was what it was. It was going to happen. Either way, I was going to stay and finish my shift. But it added some life to the story because we remember that story and we often laugh about that. And that's the first thing she does when she sees me is check my shoes to make sure I'm doing okay. So that's one way that you can add just by leaving a little chuckle, just a little funny, just to kind of not take your life so serious, because it happens, I made a mistake or I was in a hurry and that happens. So the unveiling of the matching shoes. So you can use humor to overcome challenges. In my resilience toolkit, humor was my secret weapon against challenges. Just like adjusting your pen's pressure on writing your story and your strokes, humor adds a depth to your mindset during tough times. It's like having a special tool that empowers you tackling challenges. And life's challenge. Every day is a challenge. And you can use positive attitude with a touch of wit. Imagine I take care of a special needs child, or I have a special needs child. And I got the day out with my girlfriends, and I'll be quite honest, it was exciting and I was ready for it. And oh my heavens. So we decided to go to the Dairy Queen. Well, I ordered mine, went to the bathroom. Those 2 ordered theirs, and I come out of the bathroom and they had theirs and I didn't get mine, and wasn't that busy in the Dairy Queen. And the guy comes up to me. I said, where's my ice cream? And he says, do you need it? And I kind of laughed. I said, well, that's kind of a trick question, isn't it? Because I really didn't need it, but I want it. I said, well, I really don't need it, but I want it because I purchased it and I didn't receive it. He laughed and he went and got my ice cream. But lowered the standard of, I could have been nasty to him or whatever. That's not going to help. But I thought, I just kind of laughed. I'm like, I think that's kind of a trick question, right? He kind of laughed a little bit, but it added a little bit color to the story by just relieving a little bit of laughter. And I'm sure he remembered me the rest of the day. And he probably wouldn't ask anybody else, do you really need it? So as we wrap up, remember that you're the author of your own story. You can get to choose what color pen you use. You get to choose what resilience you use. You get to choose how you want to script your story. Humor can add some stress management skills to it. Humor can add some mental help. Mentally, it helps you because you think outside the box when you laugh. Emotionally, it helps with the resilience. Life's not easy. You don't get to choose what anybody says or does to you. You get to choose how you react to it and what you get to do with it after that. So as I wrap up, I'm going to leave you with one quote from Charlie Chaplin. A day without laughter is a day wasted. I truly believe that. I'm actually a humor ambassador for that very reason. There's some easy exercises that you can do to even elicit some laughter. I'm a laughter therapist. I'm also a happiness coach and a brain health coach. We need that for all three of our brain, happy, and humor adds laughter to our life. My name is Katie Mag, and I'm a humor ambassador. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Simon Lader of Flow and Scale. I want to tell you a story that happened to me when I was 20 years old, in fact. I was with a friend, Mark. Mark and I were driving to a very close friend's wedding. We went to the wedding, we had a really great time. And then after the wedding at, I think it was like 1:30 in the morning, we headed home. And we were driving on back in England, we call it a motorway. We're driving on the motorway. We were doing 80 something miles an hour, a little fast. It was now about 2:40 in the morning when suddenly Mark, who was driving, I was fast asleep. He started to lose control of the car. We were driving very quickly. It was a busy motorway. This is the M6 for people that know English motorway systems. And suddenly the car started chicaning all over the road like this, okay, zigzagging back and forth, okay. What we didn't know at the time was that the front wheel had actually clean come off the car. Mark is driving this way and this way and this way and this way. And I remember holding on. I don't know why we do this. We hold on to the rail, holding on as the car was going perpendicular to the way of the traffic. So rather than going that way, it was actually driving this way and seeing two big trucks in the distance. And I just thought, this is it. And I literally braced for impact. And everything stopped. My world stopped. It's amazing how things slow down like that. Now, we all have our own belief systems. Some believe in God, some don't. Some believe in humanity, some don't. Some believe we're all in a matrix. What I chose to believe was just to that point, all of my ancestors were arguing my case. And they were saying to whatever deity of your choice, or the universe, or whatever energy, they were saying, give him a chance. He's 20 years old. And all the people on the other side of the argument were saying, but what's he done with his 20 years? He's 25% through a realistic lifespan. What's he achieved? He wasn't a particularly well-behaved or studious teenager. Didn't really do much in school. Wasn't a particularly high achiever. So why should we bend the rules for him? But my ancestors, I choose to believe, argued my case. And as the car sped along this direction of the motorway, we missed every single vehicle that was coming towards us. Mark, my friend who was driving, managed to steer the car somehow to be parallel again with the motorway, with the flow of traffic. And somehow by aiming for the crash barrier on the side of the motorway, was able to stop the car. The only injury we sustained was a slight scratch to Mark's knee as he was holding the steering column. So that really gave me at that time a real wake-up call. At 20 years old, to be literally confronted with death, it really gave me a wake-up call and made me realize that we only have one life to live. There are no second chances. Okay? I'm recording this on Thursday, the 10th of August. And this is the only Thursday, the 10th of August, 2023, I will ever experience. In a world where we seem to have plenty of tomorrows, this is the only today you'll ever have. So how do you maximize today? And more importantly, as business owners, what does that mean for our business? Well, one of the key issues that a lot of business owners have is that they never look beyond today. They never realize that there should be planning, there should be sustainability, there should be predictability in their business, and don't have the systems in place to ensure that to happen. So they come into work and they think, right, what do I need to do today? Not realizing that if there was a system in place, then that system would really help them. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about the issue that a lot of business owners have because they don't have this predictability. Let me ask you: does this sound like it's you? You have a great January, but then February you don't know where your business is coming from. March is amazing. April you're struggling. May you're starving. June amazing. Does that sound like the kind of 6-month period you might be having? And you're not knowing in January whether or not you might be able to go away for spring break. When all your friends who are working in corporate America are planning their summer vacation in February, you're thinking, I've got no idea whether I'm going to be able to take a summer vacation until June, if at all. So how do we overcome this? Well, first of all, let's understand the reason why this happens. Okay, so most of us get into business because we want to provide the value and the expertise for which we are trained and have experience in. That's what we want to do. So if you're a lawyer, you want to practice law. You don't want to sell legal services. If you're an accountant, you want to be a CPA and provide accountancy services to your clients. You don't want to sell them. You want to be a practitioner, not a salesperson. But the problem is, as business owners, our biggest responsibility is sales. If there's no revenue coming in, if there are no invoices going out, if there are no sales being made, we've got a major problem. So what do we need to do to ensure that we don't have this roller coaster of inconsistent revenue, this roller coaster of sales? Well, it's actually very simple. Let's understand why this happens first off. Okay, so does this sound like you? Does this resonate with what you're experiencing in your business? So you come in on any particular day and you realize, oh my goodness, I've got nothing in the appointment book. My calendar's empty. So I'm gonna have to do some of that blimmin' lead generation. I hate generating leads, but I've got nothing else to do, so I might as well generate leads. It's that necessary evil. When there's nothing else to do, I suppose I'm going to have to do it. So you make a bunch of new business calls, you send out some emails, you post some content, you do whatever it is that's appropriate for your business. And sure enough, because you've done some of it, here's what happens. Leads come in. Great. I've got some onboarding calls. I've got some client discovery calls. Amazing. So you make your client discovery calls, you do your onboarding, and then, wow, hallelujah, I've got some work. Great. Now you're a practitioner. Now you're the lawyer. You no longer have to sell legal services. Now you're the CPA. You no longer have to sell accounting services. So you don't do any more lead generation. So what happens to that flow of leads coming in that are going to keep you fed a week or two hence? It stops. There are no leads coming in. But you're not really bothered about that right now because you're burying yourself in the work that you've just generated. But when the work finishes and those invoices go out, great, that money's going to come in. But where's the money for the next couple of weeks or the next month going to come from? The reason why we have inconsistent sales is for one reason only. We make inconsistent effort towards lead generation. So if you want to have consistent sales and consistent revenue week in, week out, month in, month out, quarter in, quarter out, then you need to be doing consistent lead generation, whether it's monthly, weekly, daily, whatever's appropriate to your business. In my business, here at Flow and Scale, or in my other business, Lisa Human Capital, or even in my podcast, The Conference Room, we have lead generation activity happening every single day. Every single day. For at least 1 hour a day, every day, we're doing lead generation. And it doesn't matter how busy we are with the practice that we're doing. Okay? Sleazy Human Capital is a recruitment business. We could be busy up to the gunnels with headhunting activity, but we still spend at least 1 hour a day, sometimes more, never less, on lead generation. And because we have that consistent flow of lead generation, we have that consistent flow of revenue coming in, month in, month out. The minute we stop, we know that there's going to be a pause in sales because there's a pause in leads. It's that simple. So how do you ensure that you're maximizing this one life we have? We only have a finite amount of time on this amazing planet, this amazing life. How do we maximize it? Well, think about the kind of business owner you want to be. Think about the type of human being you want to be, and be that. Okay? Never look back in regret. Don't look back and go, do you know what? I wish I'd have done that. There's the old saying of people look back and regret far more the things they didn't do than the things they did. That's what motivated me in my 30s to uproot my family from England and come and live right here in America. That's a whole other story for another time. But building off of that, whether or not you have big grandiose plans and want to make life-changing moves, or whether you just want to have a business that keeps you and your family in an appropriate lifestyle, remember, you've got one life to live, and that life is made up of a series, and hopefully a very long series, of todays. Each one of them is unique. Each one of them needs you to give maximum effort, whether it's in lead generation, 1 hour a day, every day, or just putting in the effort in your business relationships, your family relationships, whatever it is. If you want to learn more about me, go to facebook.com/groups/scale, share, monetize. Facebook.com/groups/scale, share, monetize. That's my Facebook group specifically about consistent lead generation if you want to learn more about that. Or, of course, you can always listen to me on the Conference Room podcast. Julie, our wonderful host, was a guest some time ago, and I'm delighted that she invited me to come here. So thank you very, very much, Julie, for having me here. Thank you very much to you all for listening. And if you want to connect with me or ask any more questions about lead generation, or even about the car accident, or how I moved my family from Great Britain to the US, I'd be more than happy to answer it. So look forward to seeing you at the Q&A, and I look forward to connecting with all of you at some stage. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Hi, and welcome to my workshop, One Life to Live Today, where you'll learn how to plan by the phases of the moon to reduce busyness and burnout. I'm Mikhail McCracken. I own Space and Grace Productivity Coaching. Entrepreneurial women hire me when they want to build their empire while enjoying more time and energy. I'm a mum of 2 boys, a cat, and a dog. I'll teach you how to use the phases of the moon to plan your workload. You only have one life to live. So rather than continuing to feel overwhelmed, overworked, and scattered, incorporating the phases of the moon into your planning will enable you to create space for rest, which will ultimately give you more energy and enhance your productivity. You'll learn to achieve more while working less. Here's an outline of what we're going to cover today. The benefits of planning by the phases of the moon. You'll learn what the phases of the moon are and what to do and when. You'll learn how to incorporate this into your current schedule, and you'll learn how to get started with my free guide. So can you relate to how I used to be? I built my previous business the hard way. I was continually pushing and doing and just working longer and harder to get everything done. I was raising 2 babies at the time of building my business baby, and I had a full schedule. It was jam-packed, and I barely slept. I'd wake up with a jolt of adrenaline, and it didn't matter what time it was. If I woke up with a jolt of adrenaline, I would leap out of bed and I would just start working, just thinking that I had so much to do and that I had to get it all done right away or I would never be a success. I never napped when my babies napped, which is the advice that everyone gives brand new mums. And I was just trying to manage my business and my team and my household, and it was just exhausting. That did result in financial success. I do have to give credit where credit's due. I did make a lot of money, but I also completely burned out. And it started with hyperventilating. I just started to not be able to catch my breath. And then I started experiencing anxiety for the first time in my life. And then the panic attacks kicked in as well, which was really scary. So I went to my doctor and I asked her to prescribe Valium. I'd only ever heard that name in movies, but it sounded like something that I could benefit from. And she laughed at me and she said that could knock out a horse, which at the time sounded pretty damn good. And she recommended that I do some yoga. And yoga was something that was a huge part of my life before I had kids and was building my business. And I wanted to punch her in the face. And to be fair, she wasn't wrong. That was very solid advice, but I didn't want to hear it. I just wanted to take a pill to take the edge off so that I could continue working at the frantic pace I'd set myself. And of course, that resulted in utter fatigue because I didn't go to yoga and I didn't chill out. I just continued and I continued to have panic attacks and it was all very grim. So I was utterly exhausted and I ended up selling my business, and that did significantly reduce the stress. But I still had to learn how to manage my time and my energy so that my body could keep up with my brain as I worked on building this current business. And what I discovered was it wasn't about doing more. It was about figuring out how to get the same result or a better result with doing less. It's about managing time and energy and giving yourself permission to make space for self-care. It's about honoring the time you spend dreaming and learning and planning rather than just trying to cram it all in so you can continue doing some more. It's about being compassionate to yourself and celebrating your achievements every step of the way. I used to be such a mean girl to myself. So if you feel scattered because you're constantly switching from task to task and you're unsure what to focus on and when, if you feel anxious because you're not reaching your goals fast enough despite being busy, if you're feeling frustrated because you have a wealth of ideas but not enough time or energy to bring them to fruition, if you're disappointed at the gap between what you imagined your life would look like and your current reality, if you feel guilty whenever you stop working, and if you only stop when you get sick and your body forces you to, then I think you're going to love learning how to plan by the phases of the moon so that you can achieve your goals while doing less and you have more time and energy to do other things that light you up.
When you divide your workload between the different moon phases and harness the energy of those phases, you'll never run out of time and energy. You'll allow space for rest, and this will enable you to be more productive and focused during your working hours. The benefits of planning by the phases of the moon. So the moon is usually more reliable and predictable than your own internal cycle. So women who menstruate can tap into their inner cycle. And at different times of the month, they'll have more energy or less energy as their hormones fluctuate. And that's awesome if you can tap into that. But so many people don't menstruate for myriad reasons. Maybe they're on the pill. Maybe they've just had a baby and so their periods haven't returned. Maybe they've gone through menopause. Maybe they're experiencing perimenopausal symptoms, or maybe they just simply don't have a uterus, right? There's so many reasons why you may not have a menstrual cycle. And so I find that planning by the phase of the moon is just easier. It's way more predictable. I always know where that the moon is going to come up, and I can always plan by that. So you can align your menstrual cycle with the moon as well. So in the next slides, when I'm talking about different phases of the moon, I will also point out the different phases of a menstrual cycle in case that's of any use to you. All right, here we go. So we're going to start with the new moon. And if you're menstruating, this is when you bleed, and it lasts for approximately 3 to 7 days. Now, this is the time that I struggle with the most because it's not my natural go-to move to chill out, but this is the time I'm trying to embrace, and it has made such a big difference. So this is when you can turn inward, you can rest and reflect. You can evaluate everything, your work, your previous month, your goals, your relationships. It's time to listen to gut feelings and course correct if you need to. Most importantly, it's time to take care of yourself. It's best to avoid inflexible deadlines and work at a slower pace if you can. It's a great time to write down your intentions or your goals or desires for the coming month. And you can do gentle exercise like yoga or Pilates or Tai Chi. The next stage is the waxing moon, and if you're menstruating, it's the follicular phase, and it lasts for approximately 7 to 10 days. Now, waxing means increasing, so you'll start to see more of the moon during this period. There are different phases of the moon, but basically, if you're starting to see more of the moon on her way to becoming a full moon, then you're in the waxing period. And this is a time for new beginnings. You can take your intentions, goals, desires that you wrote down in the previous phase and start brainstorming how you can turn them into reality over the coming months. You can plan out your projects, and you have more energy and feel more creative and innovative and just ready to try new things. It's like you're starting to wake up again. You can also increase your exercise to include cardio at this point. All right, so the next phase is the full moon phase. And if you're menstruating, this is when you ovulate, and it lasts for approximately 3 or 4 days. And this is the time to take those projects and ideas that you planned in the previous phase and just start talking to everyone about them. You're so magnetic here. It's great manifesting energy. You should be out and about and tooting your own trumpet and just telling everybody about what you're doing. It's a really good time for pitches, to have conversations, to collaborate, and it's a really good time to batch content, especially if it's things like YouTube videos or podcasts. And you can include more intense exercise like HIIT workouts during this phase. You've got lots of energy. And then we start heading back towards the dark moon again. So this is our waning moon phase, or if you're menstruating, it's the luteal phase, and it lasts approximately 10 to 14 days. So similar to the waxing moon, you've got different phases, but basically, and just to keep things really simple, the waning moon is when you start to see less and less of the moon as it starts heading towards becoming a new moon or a dark moon. So this is the best time to knock stuff off your to-do list and do the work. And this is my best period. This is where I feel more comfortable because this is what I had always done, right? I was just doing. So I'm very comfortable in this phase. You'll be more able to focus on details. It's a really good time to deal with admin tasks and accounting and doing your metrics and to finish your projects. And it's a good time for strength training. Now, during the second half of this phase, start turning more inwards. You are heading towards your dark moon or your bleed phase if you're menstruating. So just try and plan fewer meetings and commitments during the second half of this phase. Okay, so how to incorporate these ideas into your planning. So as you start to work with these phases and start planning with these phases, you'll notice how much more energy you have. There's just not so much hustle and overworking. Like there's a time and place for everything, including rest. Now, you could get help or say no to things during the new moon or waning moon phases. You could order takeout or organize extra childcare during these phases as well. You could schedule your meetings or launches over the full moon period when you're great at communicating and are at your most magnetic. And you can keep a running to-do list that you can tackle during your waning phase. That's what I try to do. Like if it's something that doesn't need to be actioned right away, and most things don't, then I add it to my list and I just tackle it during the waning phase. Now, how to get started. You can download my free guide. It's Productivity by the Moon. You can go to www.spaceandgrace.me/moon planning. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope this has provided a lot of value for you.
I hate endings. Endings are hard, but I know that this is not an ending for any of us. This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of our journey together, my friends. Purposeful You is the place where you want to be. If you want to connect with us, all the information is in the chat. I hope you enjoyed all of the speakers in the One Life to Live panel. If you haven't heard any of the other ones, I invite you to come and hear them. And you know what? They're here for you to have these lessons, for you to continue to thrive and find the life that you want, to live the life of your dreams, to build your confidence and know that you are meant to be doing something great. Something great. And perhaps in the minutia of every day, you are not seeing it. Perhaps in the hustle and bustle, you know that there's more for you and it's not there yet. And that's okay. I didn't expect you to necessarily walk away saying, oh my God, Julie, I know what my purpose is. I expected you to start to think and wonder and decide that there's more possibilities for your life, despite maybe what you had thought before. Finding your purpose is all about the journey, is all about the steps, and all about the experiences that we get every single day. Like me, purpose doesn't come overnight. Watching this video doesn't necessarily guarantee you having your purpose. But what I do want you to know is that this content is here for you to continue to learn from, continue to connect with, so that you can find that purpose that we all have inside of us, that gives us the joy, the fulfillment, and we don't have to do it alone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for connecting with me. Make sure that you listen to the Casa de Confidence podcast. Make sure that you check out all of the out of this world speakers who are my friends, who are part of my community, who are part of this incredible movement that we are creating together. Join us. Join us in this movement. Again, because we can't do it alone. I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope you enjoy this purpose. And the purpose of the summit was really to have us connect, to have us grow in our confidence, because without confidence, we can't continue in the journey. And we're not going to do it unless we grab each other by the arm and go forward. So my friends, until next time, I'm Julie DeLucca-Collins, and don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.